Supposedly, we now know who is going to be managing the Detroit Tigers in 2018, and it's going to be none other than familiar face Ron Gardenhire, former longtime manager of the Minnesota Twins. I believe he spent 13 seasons there. Is going to be taking over the Tigers. Who cares? Honestly, this sign doesn't make any sense. Is Ron Gardenhire a bad hire? I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. This is a team that's going to lose 100 games, potentially 2 years in a row. Gain some stockpile, some more draft picks, gain some stock, and just keep drafting high up and trying to rebuild their farm system is all it's going to be. And trying to see who's going to be on their team for the next, 5 years, 6, 7 years so they can try to rebuild. But it doesn't make a lot of sense. Yes, that signing doesn't really matter. Yes, it's not going to play a huge role, but it doesn't really make sense. This is what kills me about the Tigers. 4 years ago, they signed Osmus, a guy that had never managed a game in his life besides Team Israel, on a team that was very close. His window was very close to being closed because they had a lot of contracts that were expiring. They had a lot of guys that were starting to get older, and they knew they didn't have a team that was going to win for a lot longer, although they tried to. So they hire Brad Osmus, and I thought it made sense at first. You can go in here and watch my video from when they first hired Osmus. I was for it. Talking about, hey, he's a younger guy. He's a Dartmouth guy, and he understands analytics. But, Osmus came out and straight up said their analytics department was shit. They had, like, 2 people working in the analytics department when he first started there before, it's eventually started to grow. And like I said this in my last video, he managed the Tigers right out of that 14 ALDS against the Orioles. It was purely his fault with his use of Jabba Chamberlain. It was purely his fault. He managed himself right out of it, and he had leads in those games. And the Tigers just never recovered after that. 15, they were awful. Last year, they just missed making the playoffs. All they had to do was win a couple of games against the worst team in baseball, and the Braves, and they didn't. They got lost 2 or 3, and they ended up getting eliminated from wild card contention. And then this year was just an abomination. It was a full-blown rebuild start. So I don't understand this hire now. Ron Gardenhire is 59 years old. He's going to get at least a 3-year deal because he's going to want some comfortability. It's not like a Dusty Baker when he goes on the Nationals where he gets a couple years and they know they're knocking on the door of the World Series. They've had teams that won the division. They've had teams that won the National League's best record. One that had the National League best record a couple of times. So they know they had a team that's close to winning. They just needed a manager. That Matt Williams kind of got aired out. I thought Matt Williams was a good manager, but he kind of got the short end of the stick. But neither here nor there. But Dusty Baker signed a couple-year deal because they know they weren't too far off from winning the World Series. And they maybe just needed someone like Dusty Baker who has a lot of managerial experience. He's been to the World Series before a couple of times, but he just could never win the games. Even though in 2002, you can make the argument that the Giants very well should have won that World Series. But what are you going to do? The Angels, rally monkey, all that bullshit. But neither here nor there. It's a different circumstance. He's 59. By the time this team is ready to compete, say he gets a 4-year deal, do the math. He's going to be in his mid-60s. You think it's going to be Davey Johnson or Jack McKeon who's going to stick around and manage until they're 70-some years old? No, he's going to want to check out. By then, he's going to have managed 16, 17 years. He's going to be done. And it's going to be like the Leland situation. He got tired of the travel. He got tired of just, dealing with the media, just everyday bullshit of being a manager. And it's going to be like that with Ron Gardenhire. So then what do? You have a team that you've hopefully by then you've built, hopefully by then is knocking on the door to being competitive or, maybe just missed a wild card spot. And then what do? Okay, well, here's the only manager you guys have ever known. Here's a new person. And all these, sometimes philosophies don't work on a team. They just don't gel. Teams don't win. Look at what was his name? Bobby Valentine with the Red Sox. He was one and done. His philosophies didn't work. They fired his ass after a year. And, then they hired John Farrell. Who knows if this is what it is for Ron Gardenhire. So you bring in a guy that's 59, going to manage here maybe 3-4 years, and then you're going to kick, he's maybe retire or, he's going to want to be done. And then you can bring in another guy. And then it's a brand new philosophy and you start over. So, I mean, I don't understand it. Hiring someone like of Ron Gardenhire's stature would have made a lot more sense in 2014. A guy getting who you needed. You needed someone with experience, someone that, had been to the playoffs before and had been on competitive teams. Not someone that was a rookie and didn't have a fucking clue. You hand him a keys of a Ferrari, and he's still in training wheels. So, It just doesn't make sense in that standpoint. And the Tigers talk about going really analytic. Ron Gardenhire is a guy. He's an old school kind of manager. Who knows what his philosophy and analytics are going to be and whatnot. So it doesn't really matter in the standpoint of they're not a good team and they're not going to be good for a few years. Hopefully in a few years, 3-4 years, less than that. But it's who are we kidding? It doesn't make sense of they hire him now. And he's going to be really old, but, he already is older. But he's going to potentially want to be done by the time they're going to be competitive. And then they hired Austin. They honestly got it backwards. They needed to flip it. They needed to hire someone with experience when Auspice got hired. And hire someone of Auspice right now, stature now. Someone, a younger manager, trying to get their feet wet, trying to see what it's going to be. That would have been okay. If Auspice got hired now, the shit he'd have pulled, it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, he got 90, 100 loss team. He's learning on the fly. That'd have been better. But like I said, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't. They're not going to be good. I guess the one thing that's nice about Ron Gardenhire, he was a guy that he started with the Twins when they were young. When Maurer was coming up and Morneau was coming up, when Santana was a stud, and he got a young kid like Francisco Liriano. He molded them. Maybe it'll be the same thing. Who knows? It's wishful thinking. But it honestly doesn't really matter. I'm just kind of perplexed. I guess that I guess the nice thing about someone like a Freddie Gonzalez would have been, he got those really young Braves team. When Freddie Freeman first came up, and Andrelton Simmons, and Craig Kimbrell, and Julio Teheran. He got a lot of young kids. I guess that would have been all right. So who knows? Like I said, it doesn't really fucking matter. He's not going to be here for super long. The Tigers aren't going to be very good. So it just doesn't make sense to me. He's older. I would have expected him to go a little bit younger. Someone that could have grew around the team, could have molded these players. Be here like the term of maybe like Leland was, 06 to 13. I mean, that's a long time, 7 years. So who knows? It's all up in the air. So Tigers are, I guess, negotiating a contract. Ron Gardenhire is going to be the next skipper of the Tigers. So see how it goes. Hopefully he's here. Hopefully he molds these kids and they find a core and they become good again. Who knows? That's all I got for you guys today. And what are your thoughts? Do you like the hire or do you not?